Hi, everyone. Election season is underway in New Jersey. Every active registered voter will automatically receive a mail-in ballot this year. Now, the instructions aren't complicated. They're just specific, and we're here to walk you through it. I'm Natalie Patterson with NJ.com. I am joined by our journalist, Karin Price Muller, who has written extensively on the mail-in ballots and this entire process. Karin, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
I'm very happy to be here, Natalie.
You've been super busy.
It's the season.
Right? So let's just dive right in. When should we expect to have these ballots by?
Most people should have them already. The counties had to send them out by October 5th. Now, keep in mind, we have had some slowdowns in mail in certain areas. And I know Monmouth County, which is where I live, I only got mine yesterday. I've heard that there were some late mailings also in Gloucester, and perhaps some other counties too. But you still have time. Give it a week from October 5th before you start to be concerned that you didn't receive one.
I know people have a lot of mixed feelings about the mail-in ballots. So why are we doing this at all in New Jersey for this election cycle?
Coronavirus. It's a matter of just trying to keep people safe so people are not gathered together tightly in lines for the polls. I get it. I know a lot of people don't like it. We've never done this before, and it's new. But the thing is, whether you like it or not, it's the system that we have. So what we really want to do is just make everybody more comfortable and teach you how to deal with these mail-in ballots.
If you haven't received your mail-in ballot yet, should you be freaking out? Should you be worried?
No panicking, no worrying. So, first you can give it a few more days, but if you start to really worry, there are two separate things you can do. The state voter website has a place where you can actually track your ballot, and they will tell you if it was mailed, so you can at least see that it went out. It would tell you also later down the line when they receive it back to you. So that's one option. But the other option is just simply to call your county clerk and say, hey, I didn't get it yet. And either they will issue you a new one, or they might tell you to wait a little bit if they think it's still going to be on the way. You might be able to just go pick it up. Or if it's too close to election day, they might tell you to show up in person, but that's a whole other story. You can just call them and ask.
So I know some folks really like to see their ballot before they cast their vote. Are there sample ballots available this year?
No samples, but the actual ballot that comes in the mail will show you everything that you need to see.
Okay. Well, that's a good bridge. Let's show. All right. So as you said, Karin, you got yours yesterday. Some of my friends and family in Monmouth County got theirs today. This is what the packet looks like when you get it in the mail. Big red stripe on the bottom. You open it up and it looks sort of like what Karin just showed you, many pieces of paper. Karin, do you want to walk us through exactly what's contained in this packet?
Sure, but the first thing I want to make sure everybody knows, and Natalie, I know you have another sample from another county. Not every ballot looks alike. Yes, the people that you're voting for on the federal level are alike, but you're going to have different, local races. So every ballot's going to look different. Some people might get a one-page ballot. You want to check the front and the back of it. Some people might get 2 pages, depending on the number of candidates and races that they need to weigh in on. So when you open it up, you've got a whole lot of paper. The one that I have had 2 separate instruction sheets. One was a quick card with some steps. The other one, open it up, goes over everything. So it's a lot of information. But so just, if yours doesn't look like this, that's okay. 21 counties, they're all going to look different. The one thing that will be the same is that you will have 3 pieces inside of that. One piece is your ballot. Mine is 1 page with something on the other side. They will all be different. Then you're going to have 2 envelopes. And this is really what causes the most confusion when people look at this whole scenario. So you've got 1 envelope that has a postage paid. This is where everything's going to go inside of when you're finished. So you've got that. The other envelope has a flap. And this is what's a little bit weird looking for people. This is the flap here, but it's a regular envelope. This is what your actual ballot is going to go into. So you've got these 3 main pieces, but what you want to be especially careful about on that ballot that has the flap, it's got a perforation. Do not remove the flap. You're going to need what's on that flap. Otherwise, your ballot will be considered, it'll be rejected. So
do not detach.
do not detach.
I mean, there are some clerks are writing letters with the instructions in addition to the instructions on the ballot itself. This is just the kind of thing you're going to want to take a few minutes just to review all these pieces of paper.
And they really do, if I'm sorry to interrupt you, but they really do, at least the ballots that I've seen, you know, we've got in red instructions here. We've got in red more instructions here. More instructions on the other side. So the instructions are all there. The unfortunate thing is if you miss certain parts of these instructions, you could face your ballot being rejected. But again, it's a step-by-step process. The instructions are all there. There's no reason to be afraid of this ballot or afraid that you're not going to do it right.
Okay, so we've opened up everything, Karen. We have our ballot packet. Let's get to the ballot itself. What are some of the most common mistakes people make when filling in a mail-in ballot that might complicate them actually casting their vote and their vote being counted?
So the risk of dating myself, you see it's got all these little dots to fill in. Remember when you were in high school and you had to fill out those fill out your bubble all the way through? That's what you're going to have to do. Now, the problem is that different counties have different equipment to count these ballots when they eventually get scanned on through. Some of them will accept any kind of ink. Some of them will only accept, you know, certain kinds of ink. Others could handle just like a line through the circle. Others need it to be filled out perfectly and completely. So to be safe, you want to fill out that bubble perfectly and completely with whatever writing instrument your instructions tell you to use.
Yes, so my instructions say blue or black pen.
And that's a common one. That's absolutely a common one. But I can't promise that that's what's going to be on all of the 21 counties' ballots. So read the instructions.
So again, front and back. And where will we find public questions?
So it's going to depend on the ballot. My ballot has them on the back. But again, some counties are going to have 2 sheets for you to fill out. So you might have candidates on the front, candidates on the back, and then a separate page that really looks the same as this that will have the public questions. So when you open up this package, don't throw anything away. Don't get rid of the instructions because you think you know what you're doing. Don't get rid of a page that looks like it's an extra. They will all come in handy and be needed by the end.
All right, so we've filled out our ballot. We've folded up. What's the next step there?
Okay, so now we're going to go back to those 2 envelopes. Find the one that has the flap.
I feel like the one with the flap also has a lot more red words on mine.
You live in the same county, ours does. Yes. Not everyone will. So remember, your envelope might look nothing like this one.
That's true.
But you would take your ballot and you would put it into that envelope that has the flap. But before you close the flap, look, we've got more red instructions. This is where you have to sign it. It's your certification. You're basically saying, yeah, I'm who I say I am. And this is where you're going to sign it. And that's important because that's the signature that the election officials are going to look at when they take in your ballot and mark it as arrived.
Is this what folks are talking about when they say privacy envelope?
Yeah, people are using different terms. Some will call it a privacy envelope. Some call it a security envelope. So basically what happens is when they receive it and they record your ballot in, eventually at some point during the process, the poll workers are actually going to fold and take off that piece. And then they will be left with your ballot, which is sort of more anonymous for when they do the actual counting process. So no one's going to see if you voted Democrat or Republican or so on. So eventually your name is going to be removed. But if you rip this off and send it back without the certification part, your ballot will be rejected. The good thing is that for signature problems, whether you forget to sign it or if there's a signature mismatch where, you know, let's say you signed up to vote when you were 18 years old and you're now 55 and your signature looks different, they will actually contact you within 24 hours to say, hey, there's a problem with the signature, let's fix it. But if there's a different problem, like if you had ripped that piece off, they're not going to call you to fix it. If you forget to put the ballot inside, they're not going to call you to fix it. If you don't seal the envelope, you can use a wet paper towel if you like. You don't have to lick it. But if you don't seal it properly, they're not going to call you to fix it. So it's only for signature issues. But, the lesson here is do not remove that flap. Flap is important.
It can't even be taped or stapled back onto the privacy envelope, the certification envelope, right?
No, leave it as is.
Okay.
But fill it out. And then after you fill it out, you would seal that portion.
Okay.
Then you go to your final step, or close to your final step. You take the next envelope, the one with the postage paid, so you don't have to put a stamp on it. You put that entire envelope into a larger envelope. Having trouble here doing it. It's a nice place. Because I haven't filled out my ballot yet. I'm just practicing with you guys. But then you're going to seal that one. Now, what I want you to watch out for, depending on your county, every envelope is different. Some of them have a little window, like we have here for this one. And what they want you to do is put the smaller ballot or the envelope that holds your ballot inside and have a barcode stick out. Others might have a return address that they want to stick through. So read your instructions, put in the ballot properly. When you do, you seal it, and then you can decide how you're going to deliver it back to the county.
Exactly. So here is the outer envelope for Monmouth County, the one that Karen was just showing you since we're in the same county. And here is the envelope for Hunterdon County. So a little different. Hunterdon County has a spot for the return address where you would want to write in your name and address. Monmouth County, you don't have to write anything in. You just need that barcode showing through the window, Karen?
Absolutely. That's what the instructions say in that red.
Okay. And both prepaid postage, good to go. No stamps.
No stamps necessary.
Although if you add a stamp, is it the end of the world?
I'm sure it'll get delivered anyway. It shouldn't be something, of all the things that we're worried about here, concerned about with figuring out the mail-in ballots, you just don't need a stamp.
So once you have this sealed up in that outer envelope, what are your options in terms of actually casting your vote? How do you get this to the clerk?
You have many options, several options. You could stick it back in the mail, just the way you received it. Now, some people are concerned about the speed of the mail. There's been a little bit of controversy about what the postal system has been doing with some changes leading up to the election. If you're nervous about it getting through in the mail, no big deal. You've got a ton of other options. So every county has ballot boxes all across the state. And these, look similar to what a postal box would look like, but it's much more secure. There's actually 24-hour security. You can stick your ballot into that box and the ballots get picked up every day. Sometimes it's by poll workers and it's usually a team of workers. So you have people from both parties picking it up. Or the county might actually have local law enforcement help to transport the ballots back to the Board of Elections. So your next option is just showing up in person. And we saw this in Monmouth County in the last 2 days. A lot of people were showing up at the Board of Elections because they wanted to just hand in their ballots in person. And we had a line, going out the door. They opened up a second door so that more people could get through while staying socially distanced and masked. And so that's the other way that you can turn in your ballot. Now, if you want to wait until election day, you can do that also. You can hand your ballot to a poll worker at the polls. Or you could decide not to use your mail-in ballot and then vote in person. But that's a whole other story. I think we're going to talk about that in the weeks to come. Just know that you're not going to be able to use a machine. If you go in person, you're going to have to use a paper provisional ballot, which is basically exactly, I have a lot of papers here, exactly like the ballot that was sent to you. So I think it's a really great idea just to, drop it in a drop box or stick it in the mail. We want to make sure everyone's vote is counted.
So for 3 of those options, I'm not talking about the provisional ballot, but for the mail-in ballot, however you deliver it, this thing has to be sealed up. Everything has to be inside and sealed.
And this is an important point. I'm glad that you bring it up. Let's say that you're like, oh, well, I'm not putting it through the postal mail, so I don't need this envelope with the postage paid on it. Actually, you do. If you just drop your smaller envelope with the flap, right, that one, into the ballot box, it's going to be invalidated. The reason is because they want to protect your privacy. So by putting it inside the larger envelope, no one's going to see the information that you put on your certificate. So
I'm just writing down some of the questions that we're getting, Karin. What about folks who don't want to vote by mail?
Yeah, I know that that's the thing. No, so many people are concerned about voting by mail. But if you show up at the polls, you are not going to be able to use the machine unless you have a certain kind of disability. So if you show up at the polls, you're probably going to wait on a relatively long line. This is what county officials are telling me. They're expecting to see a lot of people on election day. But you're going to get a piece of paper that pretty much looks exactly like the one that was in your mail-in ballot. And if that's the case, then you're just going to fill it up, hand it in, and guess what? That vote, called a provisional vote, will not be counted until after November 10th. Now, why in the world would they do this? If I show up in person, they're not going to count my vote. They will count your vote. But to make sure that nobody does a duplicate, what they're going to do is count all the mail-in ballots first. And as they check each mail-in ballot, they check off in their system for each voter that person has voted. And then when they get to the provisional ballots, let's say, you're feeling patriotic on election day and you already sent in your mail-in ballot, but you decided that, you wanted to show up in person, but you've already sent your mail-in ballot. So they're going to check your mail-in ballot first. And when they see that you've already used the mail-in ballot, they're just going to toss the provisional ballot because as much as some people might like to, you don't vote more than once.
Right. So if you're actually dropping this envelope, so many envelopes, if you're dropping this envelope into the mail, it has to be postmarked by November 3rd.
What's going to happen, and there's been a lot of controversy about this, and I don't want to misspeak. You want it to be postmarked by November 3rd, but I think that there are actually 2 extra days that they can accept the ballots. But look, at this point, why is anybody waiting? Unless you don't know who you're voting for, vote now. There's no reason to wait. The sooner you get your ballot in, the more time you're going to give to election officials to start the count. And they get to start this year 10 days before election day. So they're going to have we're expecting a lot of volume in these mail-in ballots. There's no question. So why not give them more time to do their job?
And someone is also asking about the signature of bearer on the outside of these envelopes. What does that mean, and who should be writing in that section of the envelopes?
Okay, so let's say that you have a relative who's a little bit older, who needs some help in completing the ballot or in delivering the ballot. What happens, and I'm just laughing at, because you guys are all seeing this light on my face, right? I'm trying to get rid of it here. Okay. So now we're just done with that. We got that out of the way. You are allowed to have somebody help you with your ballot. And what they have to do is, I'm trying to find the right envelope here. They're going to have to sign to say, yes, I was the bearer. And what happens is and that on this one is on the flap down here. And when you deliver ballots, let's say you're bringing them in person as a bearer, you can take 3 ballots plus your own. You can't do any more than that. So it's not like we can have people canvassing neighborhoods. And I know there's been a lot of, conspiracy theories sort of about how people are going to try to collect too many ballots and just deliver them. The system is set up against that. That's not going to be a regular thing that happens. Here I am. I'm just moving myself once again. So
that's all right. I'll tell you one of the other questions that we just got. Someone was asking, what if you forget to sign the outside of the envelope? Now, I take that question as the certification signature.
Right. So if you forget to sign the certification signature, which would be on the flap, we're going to have 24 hours. Within 24 hours, the county will contact you and say, hey, there's a problem with the signature on your ballot. And they will give you a chance to remedy that, or they say to cure it. And you'll have a chance to fix that. So signature issues are the only ones that you can fix. So
these are really good questions, guys. Keep them coming. We have a few more minutes remaining, so send in your questions. I'm monitoring them as best I can. There's a lot coming in. When do they and how often do they pick up the ballots from those secure drop boxes, Karin?
Once every 24 hours at least. So I know people have worried about, are the ballot boxes going to get overstuffed? They don't leave it there. They want to get those ballots in their hand. They put them behind locked doors at your Board of Elections.
Okay. Tracking. If you send in your ballot, if you take it to the clerk, if you drop it off in a secure Dropbox location, can you track your ballot?
I do understand why that's especially a concern if you're using the mail or even with the ballot boxes. But yes, the state now has a system. You can go to the state's voter website and you can sign up to track your ballot. And what will happen is you can see when the ballot was mailed out to you. You could see when it was received. So received back, I mean, from the county. So that's great. And then I believe in the end, which won't happen quite just yet, but they'll tell you when it's been recorded.
Excellent. I see a ton of people saying, I've already dropped mine off in person. I've already waited online to get to mine. So I think that's fantastic. Do clerks really want us to vote early? Is that important?
You know, just imagine this is the first time they've ever done. Granted, yes, they had a dry run sort of during the primary, but they expect that the volume for the general election is going to be much larger than what it was during the primary. So I mean, just imagine you're a clerk, you're the county and you're waiting for, potentially hundreds of thousands of ballots to come in on one day, on election day. That's a really hard count. So our state's lucky that they can actually start 10 days before to prepare these ballots. So the way that I see it and what some clerks and county officials have told me, the sooner they get the ballots, the better, because then they can prepare for when they actually start the count.
Absolutely. And let's just review real quick. If you haven't received your ballot yet, or if you're concerned that you're not registered, or maybe you've moved, where can you go to see if your ballot is on the way and what actions you can take if it's not?
So you can sign up for that Track Your Ballot website, but really just as simply, you can just call the county and say, hey, I haven't gotten my ballot yet. Where is it? And they can see if they sent one to you. If you're not sure if you're registered or if you are, they'll tell you when it went out. So they might say, give it a few more days to get through in the mail. Or they might just say, sure, we'll disqualify that one and we will get you another one and you can come pick it up or they can mail it to you. So that should be, really a simple process. Don't be afraid, even as you're going through all these papers, if you're not sure of something and you can't quite find an answer, call the county election. That's why they're there. They're there to help you to complete the ballots properly.
Absolutely. I've called them a couple times and they've been really responsive. Someone has picked up the phone every time. So I'm happy about that. Someone asked a great question. So because they prefer to hand off their ballot in person and they've got a few folks in the house voting, can they drop off the ballot for their wife, son, daughter, other family members who they live with?
The answer is yes, but okay, you can't just take their ballot and hand it in. What happens is if you can show the other ballot that you had with the bearer information on that envelope, and this is the one that Monmouth County has, there's an area where if somebody is providing assistance, I certify that I am the person who provided assistance to this voter, and I declare that I will maintain the secrecy of this ballot. And you have to sign it. So when you hand these ballots in for other people in person, you have to show identification, and you're limited. You can only bring 3 plus your own. So if you're trying to help out the whole neighborhood, don't do it. 3 plus your own, that's the limit.
Karin, any other tips that you have for us as we're navigating this very unique process?
All I can say is, hold on to those instruction sheets. They're really actually very clear, very simple. Every county is going to be different again. So I don't want anybody to be freaked out because we keep showing them the Monmouth County one. It's just the one I happen to have. But I know that every county with the ballots has, they've given really specific instructions. And the workers in the county are so helpful and they're trying to do their best. They've said to me over and over again, we just want to make sure that everybody's vote counts. So read the instructions, take your time. Don't try to multitask and do 10 things while you're filling out your ballot. You don't want to make a silly mistake. There were people in the primary who forgot to put the ballot into the envelope.
Yep.
And I don't want to see anybody make that mistake.
And we're definitely not trying to do any, we both just happen to live in Monmouth County. So those are the ballots I had access to. So this is the Monmouth County ballot, and this is the ballot from Hunterdon County. Now the Hunterdon County clerk was kind enough to give us a ballot, but she wrote void through it, just so that we could use it as an example. But you can see they're a little different looking. We've just been using the Monmouth County one as an example because this one has void written.
And one of the reasons why that clerk wrote void on it, a lot of people have been concerned. There have been stories, I've done stories about dead people receiving ballots, people who have moved who have received ballots. There are actually reasons why that has happened, as crazy as it sounds. But if the county is not told that a person has died, if the county is not told that you moved, they're not necessarily going to know. And then it would take 4 years or 2 federal election cycles for them to take a person off the rolls. So if you did get a ballot for a relative who has passed away, or if you did get a ballot for someone who used to own your home, or for maybe a college student of yours who has moved out of town years ago, the county just needs to be told. So please call your county and say, hey, I got this ballot for the wrong person. So that way they can continue to fix the rolls. This has been, enormous volume of everything for these workers ever since the decision for mail-in voting started. So they need our help. It's our job to all participate in this crazy thing we have, democracy.
Well, we hope that this was helpful to everyone who's watching. We'll be doing this again as we get closer to the election. Karen Price Muller, thank you so much for your time. And guys, if you need the very latest election information, be sure to head to NJ.com. We also have a lot of great tips and information on our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. So if you have questions, don't throw anything away and read the directions. I'm Natalie Patterson with NJ.com. Take care and get out there and vote.